This is Mo Ryan, and you're listening to Chuck versus the Podcast.
You were about to enter Chuck versus the Podcast, the only show that takes you behind the scenes with the stars.
Yvonne Strahovski,
Zachary Levi, Joshua Gomez,
Ryan McParland,
Adam Balba,
Sarah Lancaster.
Contests.
We are giving away a Chuck press kit.
The directors.
Jason Ensley, Norman Buckley,
The guest stars.
Steve Austin,
Kristen Group.
Conventions.
Lights come up, and here comes Jester out on stage.
Set visits.
this is the guy right here.
And much more. Are you ready? This is great.
This is Mel.
This is Liz.
And we want to welcome you to Chuck versus the Podcast, episode 86. Wow, for Friday, April 15th, 2011. We're back with a new episode of Chuck to discuss Chuck versus the dysfunctional family Volkoff, I think we should call it. And also, very excited to announce we have a long chat with AOL TV's Mo Ryan. Well, first the news. Boy, can't hide this one. Despite what we all felt, I think, was a very strong episode after a 2-week break, Chuck saw a 13% drop in viewers since the last episode aired. That represents going from 1.5, which was already very low, to a 1.3 rating in adults 18 to 49. Now, these are not the adjusted numbers. We do record this before the adjusted numbers come in. There was a preemption in Detroit. But I should mention that preemption in Detroit represents only at most a 1.6% difference. So that can't do a whole lot. House and Dancing with the Stars were also down 6% and 9% respectively. There was other shows dropping as much as 15%. It looks like spring has sprung and literally a lot less people, like millions less people, were watching TV in the primetime slots. That said, we got to call it what it is. It's not good. And this is confirmed from our contacts at the show that basically with these kinds of numbers, there's only one hope that we can have, and that is development season. NBC traditionally has not been good, or at least the last few years has not been good introducing new shows, and our only hope at this point is that the pilots that they produce don't test well with their test audiences. And if that happens, then even Chuck's iffy ratings position could put it in a position where they want it to prop up another show that is just iffy whether it's gonna make it. So we got to keep hoping, but this is definitely not good news. But something that is good news, an interesting ratings note, is that Nielsen families now have the potential to make an even bigger impact on the actual ratings. Beginning March 28th, which has already passed, Nielsen began counting duplicate viewings of shows in Nielsen households. TV by the Numbers breaks it down this way. Beginning with the ratings we saw on March 29th for Monday night, any duplicate viewing of a program on DVR before 3 a.m. is included in a live plus SD, live viewing plus same-day DVR ratings. Could this help Chuck? It's possible. We know of at least one Chuck fan who is also a Nielsen viewer, so a repeat viewing on DVR Monday nights without fast-forwarding the commercials could boost the actual ratings. But just like any other viewing on television, this only applies to those chosen few whose viewing habits are counted by Nielsen. And just because I did see that there were a lot of people who were confused by this, you would know if you were a Nielsen family. A lot of people think that they might just be randomly being observed by Nielsen. You actually have to be contacted by them. You'll get a package. You actually get physical boxes that you have to hook up to your TV, and or some people get surveys that they have to fill out that night. So you would know if you were a Nielsen family. If you don't have that set up with Nielsen, you're unfortunately not counted by this. But if you are a Nielsen family and you've been hiding it from us, please do this. Watch maybe 3 times. Like, we really need you, especially this time. This is our most urgent hour. By all means, watch the episode again for your own pleasure. And as we've mentioned before, watching live does help if you aren't a Nielsen family, because it just generates Twitter traffic and Facebook traffic. And when people are watching and tweeting, "Oh, that's so cool," it does have an impact. It's just it's not counted in the actual ratings. We do urge you to do what you can do. If you're in the United States, you can fill out the Reward TV survey the next day at rewardtv.com. And absolutely anywhere in the world, you can join the We Give a Chuck campaign, sending postcards to advertisers. And I would suggest, especially coming into sweeps, advertisers are they're scrutinizing the ratings. And so now is definitely the time. If you want to support Chuck, we got to do this now. A small note about renewal campaigns. We don't tend to post links at chucktv.net, and we don't tend to mention on the podcast online petitions and things like that, just because our feedback from the network is that as much as they make viewers feel good, they really don't have a bearing on the renewal chances. Things like the We Give a Chuck postcard campaign, those absolutely do, because those advertisers, those happy advertisers, can go to NBC and say, we love Chuck because of this. That's good news. Other stuff, not so much.
And we have already heard back from Cloud B, the makers of Sleep Sheep. They were part of We Give a Chuck's first week target postcard campaign targets, and they were letting us know that they were really happy with the fact that we spotlighted them on chucktv.net and here on the podcast in March, and telling us that they were really happy with not just the sales, but the response that they got on their Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And then they mentioned that, and we even got a few postcards from fans, and that was so cool.
Oh, cool.
So, that's straight from one of the companies. So it does make a difference to the advertisers. And, fingers crossed that will then make a difference when it comes time for NBC to present their shows to the advertisers and say, would you buy advertising for this? So they know that fans pay attention. And that's the point of Reward TV also, is to say, yeah, Chuck fans pay extra attention to the commercials. You will be watched. Your commercials, your ads will be noticed. Mm-hmm. So in happier news, Chuck has won Hulu's Best in Show poll. Woohoo! So 9 Chucksters. That was a hard fought on occasion. There were a couple of weeks where it was down to the wire. Mm-hmm. And in addition, a while ago, fans voted in TV Guide's TV Insider Fan Favorite Awards, and the magazine just released this week the results, and Chuck won 3 categories.
Very cool.
Yvonne won for Favorite Actress. Chuck and Sarah won for Favorite Couple Who Have. And Alexei Volkoff picked up Favorite Villain. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. Zach and Yvonne are featured on the cover of the April 18th edition of TV Guide, which I believe went on sale yesterday, April 14th. And the magazine released a video of the photo shoot and also of the various winners receiving their little awards. It's Zach and Yvonne and Timothy Dalton are all featured in there. It starts at about, I think, the 3-minute 54-second mark. You can find the video posted on chucktv.net under the videos tab. It's pretty cute. It's pretty cute. Zach laments not having won a favorite, individual award, but since Yvonne won Favorite Actress and pushed him out of the category. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is good news. A lot of people get TV Guide, and something like that, especially around sweeps time, is hopefully something that could bump our numbers up a bit.
Yep. Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fingers, eyes, everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of videos, Yvonne Strahovski showed off her comedic chops in a satiric music video for College Humor, in which she channels Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, and Kesha. The video seems to be, it's kind of a love or hate it. You love it or hate it. And it's kind of sparked a lot of discussion among Chuck fans on chucktv.net. So
I think Yvonne Strahovski could read a phone book, mm-hmm. and she'd have people watching.
Yeah. It's, folks, humor is subjective. Let's just remember that.
Yeah.
And she's making fun of not endorsing the things that these pop music condones.
Right.
I think that's being lost. Some people aren't realizing that it's satire. It's not that she's saying, it's cool to drink until you throw up. She's making fun. She's poking fun at it.
Right.
I thought it was hilarious, but I've received some emails from some pretty upset fans. So,
really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. So just, humor is subjective. It's
just
satire.
a joke. It's
Yeah.
just a joke.
Well, let's talk about some better news, which is that dysfunctional family Volkoff.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Lexi's back.
I mean, some classic lines too in this one. I mean, Volkoff, that line near the end when he's like, about the Satan thing.
Oh yeah, what was that? I meant to go back and write that down because I'm pretty sure he's quoting something famous, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I thought this was just a hoot, this episode. It was fun, and anytime you have Volkoff on the screen, he's so delightfully mysterious. You never know what he's going to do. And I love every moment he's on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mama Bartowski being back too, and the two of them together again.
Mm-hmm.
There's dynamite there.
Yeah.
When the two of them are together, I've enjoyed every one of their moments this season.
Mm-hmm.
Just watching them interact, and I don't know. Do you guys trust Alexei? I don't.
Ew.
No way.
Ew.
Yeah.
He's so convincing.
I know. That's what makes him so dangerous.
Well, and I think I do trust him in the sense that in that moment, I think he might be genuine, but he's always thinking 23 moves ahead, as we saw. I mean, who else would have a 5-minute timer on a chess game as being the only way that you can get through a door without being shot? I mean, that's a crazy guy, but who's also brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes. And how about that Uno death match? Oh my god!
I have a prop.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
Uno.
Yay!
Yeah.
Uno has been a part of my home and my family forever.
Uh-huh.
I mean forever. Uno and Phase 3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who doesn't love to play Uno?
I haven't played it since I was a kid, but this might be a good chance to go buy a set of Uno cards.
Oh, I tell you, when my family gets together for a holiday, or even, I have a few sisters, and we all get together and we crack ourselves up quite a bit, but you pull out a game of Uno and, we're just done. We're done. We're crazy.
It reminds me of, I don't know if anybody's seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh yeah.
When they play Battleship with the Grim Reaper.
Yep. Gosh, I love that movie.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of my Keanu Reeves crush.
That
Lasted all this time.
I mean, when he said Uno just as a joke, I never expected that they were going to be playing.
Who would have expected Somalian pirates to have Uno in their camp, right? So awesome. And then they're so intense on it. And then he's cheating.
Cheating at Uno.
Yeah. So he's got to have multiple decks, and already he plays it enough that he knows how to cheat.
Yep. Oh gosh, that was just brilliant. I was thinking we could start a renewal campaign. Chuck is numero uno. 10 packs of Uno cards to NBC or something.
Oh, that would be funny, actually.
Uno.
Yeah.
Love it.
And the scene with Morgan imitating Casey.
Oh my!
I don't think he was imitating Casey. I think they just synced up.
Well, the only thing,
when women live together, right, Liz?
Yes.
Yep. I think Morgan and Casey have synced up.
The only thing that tipped me off was when Casey took a big bite, and then Morgan said, "Did you have to take such a big bite?" Like, I think he was imitating everything that Casey was doing, but Casey was doing obviously something that he couldn't do.
Funny. I always thought Morgan had a big mouth. Huh.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Yeah. And even the way they shot it was so brilliant. Like right in front of the camera, seeing the exact things coming up, and that was
scary.
And
very
scary. And Chuck's sitting back there going, "Huh, that's different."
Well, and actually, the great thing is that everybody's been talking about, oh, this is such bad news for Morgan to live with Casey. And the great thing is that they were able to find something funny that wasn't what we expected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the two of them together. And then Alex coming into the mix and just how she's interacting with the two of them together and separately. She's so comfortable with Morgan, you know?
Yeah.
It's just such a easy relationship, really.
Yeah.
Especially on this show. I mean, I know they've had their obstacles to overcome, and a big one by the name of Casey included, but it's just such a nice relationship. It's just so sweet.
Yeah.
And then
I'm glad how they've all come together, and they do all seem to fit, even, you know, in the oddest ways. Unexpected ways, I should say.
Yeah.
And I really liked Alex making a point to have a private post-graduation celebration with her dad.
Yeah.
That was really nice. And then it leads to their mutual decision to reveal that he's not dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy, they're setting up for some killer stuff coming. And actually, when I think about it, there were more subplots than usual this episode. I mean, there was the Ellie and Awesome subplot with Mama Bartowski taking the stuff off the computer. There was that one with Alex. Yet I thought they were all really well handled.
I thought so too. And this was a Nicholas Wooten episode. And we've kind of not been thrilled with his in the past. It didn't feel like he really had the tone for the variety of genres that is the show, and to be able to juggle all those plots. But he did a fantastic job this time. He's
now it was
settling in.
It was Nick Wooten, and also he was paired with somebody.
Oh, was he? I only saw his name.
Yeah. Oh shoot. Amanda Kate Schumann. She actually used to be an assistant there, and she's been promoted to full writer this season. So,
is this her first episode?
I think so.
Okay.
And typically, the way I understand these things happening on other shows, TV, or at a podcast time, is that what will happen with brand new writers is this was probably stuff that she pitched, or that a script that she was commissioned to do, and then Nicholas Wooten would help her on it. So my guess is, and I don't know this for sure, but my guess is that what we're seeing in this episode is primarily Amanda Kate Schumann.
Okay. Well, they're a good team. I really liked this. I thought it balanced pretty well, and the pacing was good, and we got a lot out in the open, got a lot of answers. So thanks for that. We found out, Chuck found out that Ellie's been lying to him about the laptop, which was huge.
Yeah, and
just when he was going to tell her, and that that he's back in the spy world, and oh man, I was like, oh.
But don't you want to see now? Don't you want to see what he does now that he realizes that she's lying to him?
Yeah,
and how that plays out? I thought that was a really neat twist.
Yeah.
But I appreciated that they had Mama be kind of being the voice of the fans and saying, just tell her. Tell her already.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But then they found a really neat twist to keep it from happening. So
yeah. Well, and you know what I loved in this episode is, and even more than Awesome. Awesome actually is a terrible spy because he can't lie. But Ellie is a really good spy, at least from what we've seen so far.
No, she's a Bartowski.
Yeah.
Yeah, she could certainly bring it.
Yeah.
Yeah, six pack and hot mama.
That was
quite a team.
And when she turned the baby monitor around, so that they could watch her, and some cool stuff. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you wonder where that comes from besides her being a Bartowski? I mean, it's not something that that's not something that's in your genes.
Well, I mean, they were raised by two spies, and there is a precedent for how kids pick up on things that their parents don't teach explicitly, as in kids observe us in ways that we don't always know.
It's called modeling.
Yeah. And
so some things were going on in their childhood that maybe
subconsciously picked up on,
or maybe the parents weren't that careful on hiding or thinking that they weren't seen. Okay.
Yeah, true.
And we know that they're both brilliant. Both she and Chuck are
Right.
brilliant. They have better minds than the average Joe.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. So we haven't talked about Vivian at all. Speaking of children taking after their parents.
What a twist with her, huh?
mhm. Yeah,
I mean, woo.
That she pulled that on her dad. Oh, that was
Yeah.
bold. But he had to give her props for it, because that's what he would have done.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I can't imagine why he was so shocked. I think his just pride was more shocked than anything.
Yeah.
That someone that carried the Volkoff name would actually turn on him.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
because she's a Volkoff. That's why. You've been
Yeah.
draining her for this.
Yeah.
It did seem a little quick, though. Didn't it? I mean,
A little bit. I mean, they had that bomb clock ticking, and I think that probably played a little bit against it, because I did feel that in that particular scene there was so much urgency that she was really shouting out stuff that would have been nicer to hear a little slower, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got it and I understood it, but I think that scene might have benefited with just a little bit more time in it.
well, I meant just her entire turnaround from good, lost, but Chuck-like, kind of bumbling, to evil mastermind. I mean, in the space of like 2 weeks.
She's getting help. Who was she talking to on the phone?
Yeah, I bet it was Riley. I bet
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I mean, with a twisted guy like Riley, mentoring her.
Mm-hmm.
True.
And you got to think that she has never been fully open with her cards. Like even in the beginning, I mean, I always thought that when she killed that spy by the horse there,
Mm-hmm.
that it was like we weren't seeing everything that she was letting on.
It did seem to come a little too easily.
Yeah,
She didn't seem that disturbed, really.
yeah. So potentially she actually has been much more of a Volkoff all along than we ever thought she was.
Yeah. Or that he realized. But as she said, you don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just kind of wonder. I think that she was one of those personalities that she could have gone either way, regardless of her name. She didn't have to exactly go down the same road that her father did, or that her father was. She didn't have to make that choice. So I was really hoping that she didn't, that she would just surprise everybody.
Yeah.
Vivian, I'm so disappointed.
That makes you wonder where it's going to go in the next few episodes.
It does make for a good story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, who's Agent X? Is that who she
Yeah.
was talking with?
Now, no, she was saying
She's got to find Agent X.
Oh,
and kill him.
right.
Because he's the only person that she's afraid of.
The only is that
that can
that was the
bring her
only
down?
person that
Who's a threat to the Volkoff operation.
right.
Which, so is it Chuck, or there was some speculation that Agent X is Orion, or was Orion, but now that Chuck's kind of taken on that mantle, it's now Chuck.
Mm-hmm. That might make sense. I mean, definitely, it just being Chuck would be too simple.
Yeah, and it seemed like there was more history with Agent X and Volkov Industries than obviously Chuck just found out about Volkov last fall. So
yeah.
for him to be Agent X, the original Agent X, seems unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I could see him being Agent X now.
Or it could be a totally different Agent X who is
Be Ellie.
could be Ellie, or it could be somebody completely different. Maybe another full intersect somewhere. Because she said, looking at Agent X, the Agent X was an intersect.
Right.
So either it's Chuck or it's some other intersect that we don't know of yet. Which would be
And
interesting.
that then leads us to Mama B taking those files. Why would she do that? It seemed not so much that she was trying to, she was trying to protect Ellie in a way, but it also seemed like she was trying to protect the information.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew what it was.
Yeah.
So she and Orion were in contact. I don't know. We also saw her and Diane and General Beckman referring to each other, right? I mean, very familiarly interacting like they knew each other quite well.
Yeah. And the directive from above that Ellie continue because Ellie's hit on stuff that nobody else ever has.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, it's just so complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know.
The back of that Tron poster again.
Yeah. And and one subplot we didn't mention was the prenup.
Yeah, the prenup.
Right.
Which I thought the way they resolved that was so sweet.
It was. Yeah, it was kind of cute to have Sarah be on the other side of that for a change, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was really nice.
She was not quite sure what was going on there.
Yeah.
I think she wanted Chuck to object and wanted him to reassure her that they would never be splitting up, so they didn't need the prenup. And instead, he was, that's cool.
Yeah. But he resolved it in a very Chuck-like way, which was neat.
Yeah. And along the way, we got the setup for her dad coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and she mentions again her mom, and this time says, she was caught in the middle. So it sounds like she chose her dad. Whatever happened between her parents, she chose her dad.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes you wonder what her mom is or was.
Mm.
Yep. And we had a pretty fun looking preview for next week.
Woo!
With Casey and Alex and her mom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Gary Cole back as Sarah's dad.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's something else we should mention. The prenup should lay to rest any further discussion. Her name is Sarah Lisa Walker. Sarah Lisa Walker. That's her legal name.
Sarah Lisa. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. That's what it said on the prenup. So she's had it changed. It's illegal. I think that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she said, I'm Sarah Walker, that's who Chuck fell in love with, is Sarah, and so that's who she is.
Yeah.
She's comfortable with Sarah.
And he's cool, Chuck.
And I can't believe we have 4 episodes left.
I know.
Well.
Can't wait to see what they pull out of the hat.
Yeah.
Yep. Speaking about pulling out of a hat. Okay, that's not that bad a segue. Well, I do feel that we're pulling this out of a hat because I so much wanted to tweet about this the last few days, and I was holding back that we actually had a chance to talk to Mo Ryan. She, as we know, has moved over to AOL. She's now a TV critic for AOL, and her write-ups can be found at tvsquad.com. And she was the host of the Chuck panel at C2. Was it called C2E2?
C2E2. Yeah.
C2E2, like R2D2.
Yeah.
And we had the chance to gab with Mo about where Chuck's at in relation to last season when we talked with her before, and what we had a great conversation about where we think Chuck is going, and I think you are going to love it, so we're going to air that right now. Enjoy. Well, here we are with one of our favorite interviewees, Mo Ryan, who is a critic with AOL TV, and you can find her at tvsquad.com. We love having you with us. How you doing, Mo?
Oh, I love the introduction. Thank you very much. I'm very, very happy to be here. It feels like it's a long time since we talked, so we should catch up.
Yeah. Well, and we always have so much fun just gabbing. So we're going to have some open gab. So whoever wants to start the gab, just go and gab.
Well, Mo, I wanted to just say again how fun it was to see you in Chicago at C2E2.
Oh, I'm sorry we didn't get to meet up, but it was really, really, really fun. I thought that obviously would have been awesome to have the whole cast there, but I thought that selection of cast with Chris Bedak was like a really good mix, and they were having fun. So in my experience, if the people up on stage are having fun, then, it's usually a good vibe for everybody. So I'm just really lucky that they're all very entertaining, and they just kind of can run away and take any topic and run with it, put it that way. So thank you, though, for saying that.
They pretty much did, too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, as a moderator, I always have these grand plans of everything I'm going to ask, and then people are like, "But you didn't ask this," and it's like, okay, you realize there's like 6 other people on the stage with me, and it's just, it's kind of like controlling the clown car at a certain point. But they were, I have to say, the Chuck cast was less terrifying to me than the Supernatural cast. I mean, the Supernatural folks are very funny, but I did a Paley Fest event with them like a week earlier, and I just should have like set fire to my index cards on the stage because it just came. But it was great. I mean, they were so funny. They were very, very improvisational. So again, but yeah, I think the Chuck folks, I really got through a lot of the stuff I wanted to ask. And then, the audience was just totally blew me away with their great questions, like tons of stuff that I hadn't thought to ask. So I'm always really, really, grateful for the amazing fan participation. I mean, literally, honestly, no questions where I was like, that's kind of, I don't know if that really needed to be asked. You know what I mean? Like every single one was like, oh, that's great. I want to know the answer to that myself. You know?
Yeah, it's true. They really didn't have to do much in the way of screening any questions at all.
No, in Burn on Seppenwall, we got questions in at our panel.
Yeah, take that.
You should totally not be mean like that. I mean, Alan and Dan Feinberg are friends of mine, and I just that whole thing at Comic-Con was not their fault. So I'm sure has been parsed many times, but yeah, that was one paranoia of mine. Like, we got to get a lot of questions, you know. We don't want a replay of Comic-Con.
Well, Chuck fans are definitely well informed. I would say that.
Yeah, ferociously so. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So what else has been going on lately?
Well, honestly, it's funny because it's sort of like trying to turn my page over to the page in my brain over to the Chuck area, because the last weekend I've been just basically mainlining this show called Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so, you got the screeners already?
I did, yeah. So that's been crazy because I'm trying a new thing, and I wonder what your reaction will be to this. Sometimes you're lucky enough to get 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 episodes of something, and what I don't want to do, which I've done in the past, is watch 6 and then go back and write my weekly episodic reviews of something, because I've done that in the past, and then you can't forget the stuff that you've seen that happens later in developments and just aesthetic choices that get made later. And so I'm trying to write my reviews as I go. So basically I've written 6 different reviews of Game of Thrones the last 3 days. And I've got a couple more pieces to go still before I'm done. So I feel like sword fighting might come up as a topic. So if it does, then I'm sorry. Sword fighting dragons.
Are you saying that you're watching one episode and writing that review and then watching the next one and writing that instead of watching all of them and then going back?
Yeah. I feel like, honestly, other critics have a capacity to do that I just don't have. And I did that with Boardwalk Empire, where they sent us 6. I watched 6, and then I was doing the weekly reviews, and I would have to go back and pretend I was watching it for the first time, which I think you really can't do that. It's like that was my mistake. And so what I've been doing, when I get shows now, is watch something twice, because even the way I watch something, I have a very specific way. If I'm recapping something, that I watch it. And people are sometimes, it's a very kind impulse. Why don't you review Chuck every week? Why don't you review this every week? And it's a really small list, mainly because I do it in a way that's just insanely time consuming. And I think perhaps no one else does it this way. And I'm not defending my method as being, the one that's great that everyone should do, but I like to watch it once just to watch it. I don't have a pen in my hand. I'm not taking notes. I'm just sort of experiencing it. And then the second time through, that's when I kind of go into analysis mode and write things down to remember when I'm actually writing my review. And sometimes I'll even do it a third time, like with Game of Thrones. I might go ahead and torture myself again. Just, you know what I mean? Just to have it fresh when I post these drafts. So I find that that's just very time consuming, but what I don't ever want to do is just dash something off in half an hour, which I don't think is fair. If I'm going to actually analyze something, I want to analyze it. And I know there are so many people I know who can do that, can just watch something once, boom, they can sit down in less than an hour. They have something really cogent and great, you know, just done. I can't. I feel like I'm just a slowpoke, you know? So, but it's fun. I really like plunging into weekly reviews, but I just have to pick my targets. And I know that there's so many people who cover Chuck well that it's one of those things where I'm like, well, what I don't ever want to do is be the person who says the same thing every week, because that's not interesting for anyone, you know. And a lot of times with Chuck, it's like, oh, that was funny, and oh, that was really sweet, and, you know. So I don't want to be like, I don't want to bore myself or anyone else, which, you know, bore with praise or bore with the same critiques, you know. I just want to sort of do it in a way that's enjoyable to write and read. Hopefully, I don't know if I get there in the end, but that's the plan.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully, you have a chance to share all those thoughts now.
Yes, all of
everyone.
So I hope you're settled in. That you've.
Yeah. Well, should we start talking about the season? I mean, we've had. We talked last year about season 3, and there were, you know, lots of things to talk about in season 3. Season 4 has clearly been very different, and there's been lots of people who have totally loved it. There's been some complaints about. I guess one of the biggest complaints that people have had is that it's kind of hit and miss. So there are some real big hits, and then there's others that are missing for a few people. I personally have loved it. I'm the type that I just sit back and let the roller coaster go, and I don't try to steer it. But what have you thought of this season so far?
I think, you know, to be perfectly honest, I think Chuck's always been to some degree hit and miss. I think season 3 especially, and I think that was just affected by a lot of factors. You know, they had the reduced budget, supporting cast was seen one week and then not the next. And there was the whole issue of, you know, he who cannot be named. So it just became, I think there were such amazing stakes for fans because, you know, the whole romance element of it had been dragged out so long that, you know, that was just any spark that you put to that, you know, tinderbox was just going to kind of go off. So we've got that out of the equation. I mean, you know, Chuck and Sarah are together. That's not a mystery. And to me, the best episodes have really drawn on the emotional, the same things that the best episodes always draw on, which is like kind of the emotional side and the mission side, you know. And I think what they've really done, I think what's been smart is bringing Morgan into the mix as kind of, you know, Chuck 2.0, giving John Casey and his family and his daughter, you know, time and space within the show. They can always do more Casey as far as I'm concerned. It could be the John Casey and Morgan Grimes show, and I would be totally fine with that. So I think there's been a lot of, I mean, I think, you know, they basically took a lightning rod out of the show in terms, you know, they put Chuck and Sarah together. So that was one less piece of the puzzle to kind of for everyone to fight about. In terms of the, you know, I mean, really to me, the thing that's always been the most hit and miss is the actual missions. And sometimes those feel a little bit sloppy. Sometimes they feel like retreads of things we've seen before. Sometimes it's just a matter of the energy not really being there. And, you know, sometimes it's a case of other things looking so great by comparison that, you know, it's hard to really, the episode where Yvonne, was the giant blonde she-male of Thailand, phase 3. I mean, that was so great that I just, you know, wow, I don't have words to describe how much I love that episode. So I think it's a case of really, when Chuck is really on, I feel like it's fully on. And when all the cylinders are not firing, it's almost like, it's not always at extremes because some episodes are kind of in the middle. There's things to like and then things that are a little bit weaker. But, you know, some weeks I think it's just not fully formed or fully there. But, I don't know. Do you guys think there have been less misses than season 3 perhaps?
Well,
sure.
Yeah, I think less misses in season 3. I mean, I personally think one of the biggest factors is how many writers were lost at the end of season 3. And new great writers have come in, but great writers that don't really know the show yet. And there are a lot of shows who suffer in their first season as they kind of try to figure out the characters and figure out the tone and how to
And
tell
there's
the
a lot of
story.
inconsistency, yeah.
Yeah, and so now that we have really virtually almost the whole writing room was changed. I mean, Rafe and Lauren, I think, were the only ones who stayed, and they were new last year. Perhaps that might have been part of it.
I think that, yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's, it's a shame, because I think the writers they lost really, really did know the show. And when Matt Miller would write an episode, you really knew it was going to be, I can't think of many Matt Miller episodes where I was like, wow, that wasn't so good. So yeah, I think that was a very big factor. That's a great point.
Well, I feel like season 4 has been pretty strong. And I mean, there's been some wobbles from some of the new writers. I've been really impressed with Kristen Newman. She's the one that wrote Phase 3.
Yeah.
If we get a season 5, I'm really excited to see what she does once she's even more settled in.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think she's done some really strong episodes. Rafe and Lauren, I think their episodes have been very good as well. I mean, as you said, they've been around, so they kind of know the show really well. So yeah, it's been, I think generally speaking, I'm kind of in a mode where I have a great deal of affection for the show. And I think I know the characters so well that anything that's character related that they do, I tend to really like a lot. And I think even some of the sillier stuff, the Buy More stuff and the Jeff and Lester, I mean, anything to do with the humorous side has been, I think, very consistent and very good. The relationship stuff at the start of the season, I think it was more of a thing where I was like, really, are they going to talk about romance problems on a mission again? Because I just, that was starting to get tired to me, because I thought, didn't we just put this to bed? Didn't we just, stop with this? But I think they've navigated it fairly well. So I'm actually glad that stuff has been, I think it's been much more integrated as the season has gone on, especially the wedding stuff. That's been pretty enjoyable. So it's been a fun season. I don't know. What did you guys think of Linda Hamilton and how she fit into the whole thing?
Wonderfully. Actually, her and Volkoff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I gotta admit, I wasn't a Volkoff fan at first. I was like,
really?
I
Even
don't
the
know.
sheep scene?
The which scene?
Right, when they're in the back of the truck with the sheep, and then he turns out to be Volkoff?
Oh, yeah. I got to be more of a fan. I thought he was definitely playing that role in a way that I was not expecting Timothy Dalton to play that role. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think I actually liked him when he kind of went more to the, I'm a remorseless evil genius. I mean, he could play the humor very, very well. But when he was making the crazy eyes, I was like, okay, what's up with this guy? But I think when he went more into the cold, remorseless supervillain role, that I loved a lot. And I really, really like Lauren Cohen as his daughter. She's someone I'm familiar with from Supernatural, one of my other fixations, and she had a really good, strong arc on that show, I think in its 3rd season. So I knew going in, I was like, wow. I mean, the chances of Lauren not, the chances are she's going to nail this, and she definitely has. How about you guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I found out that she was going to be on the show, she was coming on the show for an arc, I was totally for it because of Supernatural and because of her role in Vampire Diaries. And it just showed me she's got what it takes to be this kind of a character that could be the daughter of such a supervillain as Volkoff. And whether she went good or bad, I thought she was still going to nail it either way, because she was still going to be that. There was still going to be that part. Maybe it's because I've seen her in these other roles where you just never knew which road she was going to take.
Yeah, that's true. She had to play a very ambiguous role. And I think having watched her play Bella on Supernatural, I think she was very good in a similar vein on that show. Like, you never quite knew where her loyalties or her agenda, what was going on with her. And I think that was a great casting, because she was able to pull that off again, yet with all that sort of family drama going on as well.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think about the Gretas?
They were amusing up to a point. I certainly liked the Old Spice guy. That was you can't have that guy.
Yeah.
And not enjoy it. I mean, so I thought that was fun. I mean, it seemed like it just kind of started off that way in the season, and then it just kind of they wandered away from that, and then they brought it back. And I mean, it was fine. I enjoyed it just fine. But give me a Jeffster performance any day. I feel like, do you guys feel like they're overusing Jeffster, or is
Not
it just
at all.
right? No, I
all.
think you're right. Yeah, I think the thing that the show is going to have to deal with is they are being very cagey about like, oh, the wedding. What's going to happen with this wedding? I think there's going to be one. I don't really know why they're being cagey about it, but that's my guess. But how can they top the wedding of Ellie and Awesome? I mean, that was really one of my favorite ever moments in the entire history of the show. That was, I mean, for me, that's when it cemented, like, I will, like, give an arm to save this show.
Yeah, it's
so
an
great.
iconic. Yeah.
So how do you think they're going to try to approach that? Do you think they're going to try to top it?
I'm kind of scared to think what they could be doing.
What I would say is that I think what you said earlier on about how there have been some huge hits, and definitely they have played those moments very well. Like when I think about what the strongest episodes have been, always the penultimate and the last episode of the season are just killer. It's almost like they sacrifice things along the way for what they're building up towards, and even the last 3 or 4. So I don't know exactly what they'll do, but I know it's going to be huge.
I think you're right. I think actually, so many shows tend to have that syndrome where the third to last or second to last is incredibly strong, and then for whatever reason, sometimes the finale isn't as strong. Although I think Chuck has been generally very, very strong in its last 2 to 3 episodes. So I'm excited to see where they're taking the season, and where they're taking all these characters. I think what's nice about the season is that there have been arcs for almost everyone, and I think that's really it speaks to good planning, I think. And I'm not saying that they did a certain, John Casey story every episode, but they seem to have a plan, maybe more so even than another season in terms of not just Chuck, but everyone else. So I've got a question for you guys, actually.
Mm-hmm.
What about Chuck himself? To me, he's obviously getting, I feel like I'm of mixed minds about this. He's getting more efficient and he's getting more proficient as a spy. He knows his craft. He doesn't even necessarily have to flash or do Chuck Fu to get things done. And he's just got this whole other level of confidence. Do you ever miss the old Chuck? Or do you think it was incumbent on the show to make these changes? I mean, I kind of think both things depending on the day,
Sometimes
I don't think I would
nostalgic for him, but I like the new Chuck.
Yeah.
I think I don't feel it as much because of Morgan.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, I do think that like, say, for instance, the apple juice solving the nuclear bomb, like, I think they need to be careful to keep interspersing those into the stories to remind us that he's still the same guy. I think he can be more confident. He can be a better spy, but we still need little reminders that he's still got that underneath.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we need to really still feel like he's the guy who would himself go to Comic-Con. He loves to like be in the nerd world. I think sometimes that's what I'm missing a little bit, that he's kind of has those roots in geekdom. You know what I mean? So, it is what it is. I think he's really still very charming, obviously, and very well played by Zach Levi. But, anytime they've put Morgan and Chuck together, that is always still magic to me. So, and as you said, Morgan's wonder and his pure delight and his almost his inability to kind of not, he always enjoys whatever he's going through, even if he's being put in danger. So that is very infectious. And I think, wow, Josh Gomez has just stepped up to the plate in ways I never, ever in season 1 would have thought possible. And again, I just didn't know him as an actor, but he's just amazingly skilled and has so much facility with the emotional stuff, the comedy. I still think my favorite moment of the entire season was him in the frog suit, with the flippers on the boat.
And nothing else.
And, oh wow, I was just in heaven. He's one of those people that can just be funny in the way he moves, the way he does something. So I've been thrilled with how he's stepped up.
Oh yeah, I mean, from the moment that he looked at Chuck in Chuck versus the Beard and said, "You're a spy," like you just knew that there was delight coming.
Yeah, absolutely. He sold it. He definitely. It's like if we didn't have that infectious energy and that delight and that goofiness, it wouldn't be the same show at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you think about the Buy More? Some love it, some hate it.
Oh, it's so funny because it's really, really, it's such a split because I know some critics who honestly you could blow up the Buy More tomorrow and they just hate it. And I just can't get enough of it. I absolutely love, to me, some of my favorite episodes have been set almost completely there. I think, I'm thinking of the one last season where they were stuck in the store. Was that versus
Chuck versus Beard?
Yeah. That was just absolutely one of my high points in terms of, it's probably in my top 5 episodes. I think when you've got the whole gang and they've all got a mission and they're all working together for something, and you've got the spy danger, the spy mission, and so forth. To me, it's a great combination because then you've got all the humor of the comic relief of the Buy More folks, but then you've got the danger or the stakes from the spy world. So to me, it's kind of a perfect combination.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I just think those actors are really funny. Is it wrong? I can't lie. They're even the background folks too. From season 1, I think they've had mostly the same crew of actors. Who don't really ever get lines, but they're always the same folks. And I really appreciate the show for having kept that crew, because you really get to kind of know them and those faces, and it keeps a great continuity with the show.
Yeah.
It makes the workplace a little bit more real, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, in the beginning, it was pitched as Born Identity meets The Office, and you can't lose the Office part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. And it's funny because when they, like last year when they, basically blew it up, and other years when there's been talk of like, oh, what's happening to the Buy More? I think, I don't know. I don't really follow like what, and obviously, Chris Vidak and Josh Schwartz are pretty tight-lipped about where the show would go in a future season. But if the show was ever set somewhere else, like in the Buy More wasn't in the picture at all, I don't know. I can't really picture that show in my head. It just would be maybe too efficient or not grounded enough in reality. So that would fill me with fear.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about? I know one of our topics of conversation in the last time that we talked was Sarah being underused. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know where it's heading in the next few episodes, but I'm really liking where it's going. What are you thinking about her character?
I think she was really, to be honest, she was ill-served by season 3 in general. I think, that the lack of consistency that we were talking about, if it really, that's what kind of made me the most irritated, was that, Yvonne Strahovski is a great actress and she can pull off anything, but you can't necessarily ask her to be a different person, week to week. She's trying to build this character and keep it real for the fans and for the show and for that world. And I think she was just being asked to do a lot. And the amazing thing is she pulled it off and she made it all kind of work. But I think this season she's been more consistent. She's been better used. She's gotten to do some funny things. And I think she's been able to show more colors where, I just, nothing's ever perfect. And especially in the Chuck fandom, I think it's just our God-given right to grouse about things at some point. But I've been much happier with what they've been giving Yvonne, because they're just giving her a variety of things. And like I said, that episode, phase 3, where she was, just kicking butt. Boy, didn't you feel like that was just like 2 years coming or something? And she just, loved it.
Yeah.
Couldn't get enough of it. I just think,
Definitely.
wow, every episode should involve Sarah just kicking guys in the head. That makes me so happy.
with high-heeled boots.
Yeah, I think so. I think she's been, the more that opportunities the show can give her to prove how versatile she is, the happier I am. And I think I've been happier with this season.
Mm-hmm. And so what are some other highlights for you of this season?
Definitely Push Mix was great. I loved the proposal and how that went down. I think that was just perfectly handled, and I was just incredibly pleased with that. Phase 3, as I've said like so many times, I really liked a lot. Anything, and just in terms of a general theme, and not even just necessarily an episode, but anytime that Casey and Morgan have been together, to me that is gold. That's golden, because already Casey had to sort of deal with one nerd getting in the way of his missions, but having Morgan Guillermo Grimes in his face and deal with him and bailing him out of things, you can just see it. He does frustration so well. So I'm really, I don't know. I think that was really, anything that involves Casey, I'm just really like it a lot, So let me think what else. Not really sure. You guys tell me. I'm interested in what your favorites have been.
Besides all of them?
Besides all of them.
Volkoff is a real standout for me. Timothy Dalton. I have enjoyed him. As you said, it's so not what I expected from Timothy Dalton. He's been so willing to go there, with the kind of outrageous campiness, but still reining it in.
Yeah.
I actually felt sympathetic for him at one point in this week's episode, whereas, normally I'm like, he's adorable, please lock him up. But, at one point in this week's episode, I just felt like, oh, Volkoff, poor guy.
Little guy.
Understood,
Yeah.
And then I realized that's exactly what he wants me to think. That's exactly when he's going to make his move. So it's such a wonderful character that could have been so very flat, so very one-dimensional, and he's really done a fantastic job. And I've really enjoyed Linda Hamilton as Mama Wachowski. I think they've both been kind of revitalizing for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so much of the show, I think, depends on the guest star of the week. And it was great to see John Larroquette back. I think they've got now like this stable of characters and actors that kind of really get the show and get the tone of it. And that so much of the show can just ride on that, whether it's fun or funny. And they've had some good guest stars for sure. And I think especially as we were talking about earlier, they've cast really strong recurring guest stars. So that's just very, very fortunate when you have people that kind of work out and have, a lot of influence over where the overall season goes and whether it works or not.
And I think along with that, they've now have such a rich backstory from the previous 3 seasons that we've been able to see them kind of going back and referencing themselves. They love to reference, pop culture constantly. But now they're able to give us all these callbacks and just make it, just really build the universe, really.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's the thing that would make me saddest about, the many things would make me sad if the show went away, but I think you're absolutely right that it does feel like it's just a great, fun place to spend time because we're seeing all these tips of the hat to things that went down in the past or the way that characters have grown and changed and things like that. So the more they can reference the show's past and what things that have mattered, the better as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Minnie and that whole cat squad I think was really, really fun. Anytime we get into the backstories of the characters.
Absolutely. That's worked out really well. And I kept asking Chris Fedak about when we would learn more about Sarah's family, but it sounds like if that happens, they don't really have time for it this season, which is totally fine with me because if they are going to do it, I really want them to do it in a little more depth. So hopefully we'll see even more of that whole thing. I just definitely think you're right. When I think about past antagonists or past recurring characters. I mean, we all know how much I loved Shaw. And honestly, I really feel like there were a couple moments where that character worked for me, and I realized it was as much the approach to the structure of the story as anything that was bothering me. And I don't necessarily know that, I don't have a deep and enduring hatred of the actor. It's more that just a lot of things went wrong there. And so, but yeah, having really fun stuff for Mama Bartowski to do, having a great antagonist in Volkoff, having a really cool sort of ambiguous character in, Volkoff's daughter. I think that just, that gives more of a spine to the season. It gives more stakes. So they can kind of they can diverge from that stuff and go off in different directions, but they've got like a kind of a strong base to start out from. So I think that's maybe why the season has been so pleasing and has kind of had fewer big dips in terms of, quality. Although, boy, the ratings, that they've been all over the map, obviously, and that's not so great. So,
what do you think about that? I mean, you've been in this business for a long time, watching shows very closely. What do you think about the ratings?
I don't know. I honestly, like Chuck versus the Murder, I mean, the number for that is just shockingly low to me, and I don't blame the cast and people associated with the show for being nervous. That's just, it's, that's something that it's not great. You can't really put a better face on it than that. And I don't really know why that one would be in particular so much lower, but I think NBC has been in trouble for a long time. This is a show they don't promote pretty much at all anymore. And, obviously, they come out and do appearances at cons and things like that, which is great, but they're kind of preaching to the choir at that point. So, I really wish the show had a lock for a 5th season, because I really think that there's enough ammunition, if you will, for them to give us one more season and, get up to that kind of magical 100 number. And don't you guys feel like it wouldn't be, there's more story, there's like more chapters to be told, and it just doesn't feel right for me for it to go away now. I don't know. I wish I could say why the ratings are in so much trouble, but NBC's Monday night lineup, I mean, The Event has been kind of a non-starter. Now they're bringing back Law and Order. They took that off the air for weeks on end, and now they've retooled it and they've brought it back, and to be honest, it's not any better. So Chuck has really had an uphill struggle for a long time, and I just wish it wasn't that way, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it has a viable opportunity in the sense that it's a bigger fish in a really, 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 really small pond at NBC.
Yeah.
But my hope is that they can do a fixed end date. Like, rather than end it now in this season, rather than renew it and then cut it off at some point, I would love to have them just renew for whether it's 13 or 9 or whatever it is, but make it a fixed end date so that they can write to it.
Yeah.
Because when they do write to an end, that's where I see them really bringing in the good episodes. When they're not as, like, I personally think, actually, I heard, I can't remember where I heard Chris Fedak mentioning that when they were originally writing to 13 and in season 3, they had a much, much stronger arc set up. And then a lot of that Shaw thing and all those things that happened were actually real victims of having to stretch that out.
Yeah, that seemed apparent too. Yeah, that there was obviously pacing issues with that whole season that just wasn't quite falling together right. Yeah, I mean, my hope is that at this point, Warner Brothers, which is the studio that makes it, is so motivated to get to that number that they cut their license fee, they work some sort of deal. I mean, I really truly hope that it's not something that would cause the quality of the show to dip a lot, because, that was another one of the problems with the previous season, was that they just really were trying to figure out how to deploy the assets they still did have, the budget they still did have. So that just took a while. I feel like they have a better handle on that this season for sure. And, I that's my hope. I mean, my hope is that, NBC's new management team looks around and says, the Chuck audience is stable and loyal, and they buy t-shirts and they buy pens, and they, we're making money off iTunes and this, that, and the other. I just hope there's enough factors that they can sit there and go, we don't really want to get rid of this asset quite yet. But I think you're absolutely right that if they could give them a guarantee of 13 and then we're out, or whatever it is, that would be great, But the downside is that that Chuck is now dependent on NBC's development slate. If their development slate turns out great, they end up having a ton of new shows they want to bring on board for fall, then it gets dicier for Chuck. I mean, maybe the hope is that they do have slots to fill, but they want something to be kind of a scheduling spackle,
right.
Or something that's like a bridge or whatever. So, okay, well, we'll do 9 starting in January, and that'll be that, or something like that. I'm really hoping that there's some sort of way to keep it on the schedule, but it's dependent, unfortunately, on a lot of factors that there's not a lot we can do about at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mo, do you get a chance to look at pilot scripts and things, or do you not even care? Do you wait until...
No, to be honest, I try to stay away from that stuff as much as I can because, I do sometimes look at the lists of pilot concepts and who's attached to them, and I do get excited about casting news. Like if a showrunner whose work I've liked in the past is working with an actor I liked in the past, then I get excited about that. And if it sounds like a cool concept that they're working on. But I think the one thing I found is that the one sentence description of something can be totally wrong, or it can be right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the show changes a lot. It can just, so many factors can influence, the thing is that the first script that someone hands into a network is probably not the script they're going to shoot. And then sometimes they reshoot, and then sometimes the show evolves a lot from there in subsequent episodes. So to me, it feels almost unfair to get too caught up in the minutia of pilot season, because there's also so much of it that you're just like, I don't want to commit the plots of, 85 pilots to memory when 12 of them will make it. So
yeah.
It's just this crazy giant crapshoot that the industry does every year. But, the thing that is unnerving for me is that NBC does have a new creative team in place, which, I don't know, it's like kind of an annual thing with them, or biannual situation. And, Alan Sepinwall made a good point a few months ago in a piece that he wrote that, everyone likes to beat up on NBC, but it has a large number of shows that he said he actually watches and that I do as well. And I think we've been really lucky in a weird way that NBC's gone through all this turmoil because they've got all these shows that kind of wouldn't have made it anywhere else. But because they were on NBC, they were a marginal success by NBC standards, I mean, I'm just floored by the fact that we're talking about a possible 5th season for Chuck, because I thought that was so impossible 2 years ago. I would have laughed, it just seemed crazy. So, I don't know. I think that, Robert Greenblatt, the new head of the network, I certainly liked the way that he turned around Showtime. And he's had a long history in the business. So I'm just, there is usually a little bit of a knock on shows that were around before you walked in the door if you're the new brass. But I hopefully Chuck's track record and its fans' ferocity will count for something. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And just a few weeks away.
I know, scary.
Yeah.
What? Tell me what the fan universe. What are the fans? Is there movements afoot? I mean, I know there's a website for give Chuck another season and that kind of stuff. There are various fan efforts, but is there more that I should be aware of at this point? Like a campaign of sandwich buying, perhaps?
There's a postcard campaign sending postcards from all over the world to select advertisers.
Oh, great. Okay.
I think this year is different than previous years in that I think people really, really understand that it's about the ratings and it's about the development season, and I think there's less that we can do than we might have been able to do in previous years.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right about that, to be perfectly honest, and the ratings are really, if they were I guess we'll see what Chuck versus Family Volkoff, how that did. I mean, I'm really hoping there's an uptick, and I'm hoping that the last, couple of outings were just kind of weird glitches. So we'll see. Fingers crossed for sure.
Yeah.
Well, they went up against, we get criticized for being so apologetic for Chuck, but in this case, historically, we can see that when daylight savings time starts, everything goes down. And Chuck actually had one of the lowest drops of any show on Monday and on into the week.
Yeah.
And then the week after that was Dancing with the Stars premiere, which also hits pretty hard. So
yes. And then there was March. I'm so not the sports person, as my next remark will tell you. It was March Madness. So I don't know, there's probably a lot of Chuck fans who are sports fans. So I just think there were hopefully some distractions and some changes, as you said, in the daylight savings that are no longer going to be a factor.
I hope. Yeah. It takes a beating in the spring. We know that.
Yeah.
Especially from March.
Yeah.
And on into April, but I'm an optimist. I'm a perpetual optimist. So
yeah, I am too. And at least for a fixed end. Like I like this is what I see even with Greenblatt coming in. That like think of all of the shows that have been canceled already and are sure to be canceled on NBC. What do they have left to prop up any new stuff that's coming?
I agree. I think that's really the main thing that Chuck has going for it. That it's definitely. It's a tough thing to lead off a night, and to, the Monday schedule for NBC has just been this constant, revolving door of basically other shows that failed. And, the fact that they could have one prop on that night, something to shore things up, I think is not, I think that's an attractive thing about Chuck, and hopefully they'll be able to develop or put some shows alongside it where they'll all kind of synergize together, which hasn't always been the case.
Now, one thing that I thought was just bizarre that happened this year is that the median age of Chuck viewers has been increasing to the point where I heard this, and nobody, don't quote me on this, but I heard that the median age was up to something like something crazy like 50 years old.
Really? Insane.
I haven't heard that.
Those 50-year-olds, what are they thinking?
At the very least, I mean, maybe that number is wrong, but it certainly, I've heard that the numbers are skewing a lot higher in age than they used to. What do you think could be causing that?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, my first response would be, and this is just a guess, that younger fans are certainly still there and in droves, but they are watching it online or, on devices or, any number of ways. And, it's just probably, this is an old complaint, but, people are not getting counted. I just think they're not. And I think, I'm sure of the people watching it at, 8 p.m. on Mondays, probably maybe that has skewed older, but maybe because people are peeling off to watch it in other ways, in other formats at, college campuses or on Hulu or whatever. So to me, when I looked across the room at the C2E2 panel, that was definitely a very mixed audience. And I think there's a ton of kids that watch it. It looks to me, if that room was if any Chuck panel that I've ever seen is anything to go by, there are tons of kids that watch it. So yeah, that's strange to me. I hadn't heard that.
Well, I think that's a fair observation. I think Chuck is probably one of the nerdiest shows you could probably get, and so if you're to try to pick, other than Big Bang Theory, maybe a show whose fans would be most likely to watch by some nerdy device.
Yes, that's the thing. I mean, they're really, they're early adopters. Chuck fans are sitting there probably watching it on the devices I haven't even heard of yet.
Yeah. So now, and actually, I think we should mention that I think most of us haven't seen tonight's episode,
Right.
Family Volkoff.
Right.
So if people are, because this will air after that, and so we should mention that we haven't seen that. But projecting towards the end of the season, what would you like to see happen?
I would like to see where the thing with Casey and his family goes. I just honestly, really a lot of it revolves around personal connections and ties. And, I think, I don't know, do you guys think that, Morgan's going to propose to Casey's daughters? I'm sorry, I'm spacing out. Her name is
Alex.
Alex. I'm sorry. I knew that. It's been a long day. Do you think that Morgan's going to propose to Alex?
Yes.
I think so too. I think that would be so sweet. And Chuck
That would be sweet.
Chuck and Morgan are kind of on these dual paths, and I think that would be great. I just want
wouldn't it be interesting if Morgan got there faster than Chuck did?
I think that would not be surprising to me at all, to be honest, because I think, Morgan knows what he wants, whereas Chuck has a tendency to overthink things, even things that he wants. I just want them to do the wedding stuff without, hitting me over the head with it. I want there to be more comedy of the Chuck and Sarah when they're kind of not in any kind of relationship angst is really, really fun. And if they can just continue to build these personal stories and kind of have a strange parallel of family dynamics, with Volkoff and his daughter, that'll be really satisfying to me. And if they can throw in some fun guest stars along the way, then I'm all for that. I think to me, it seems like that's just a great combination of stuff. And as we were talking about, I'm really, really excited about the May episodes because I think they're just gonna knock those out of the park. I have a good feeling.
Yeah. So season 2, Chuck Knows Kung Fu.
Yes.
Season 3, we have the Buy More exploding, and always a total game changer at the end of it. From what we've heard, the last episode is also going to be a game changer this time, or at least incredibly epic.
Yeah.
What do you think they could do to change things up?
No, I mean, baby Chuck Fu. I don't know. That's the great thing is I think, okay, Chuck as a spy, I don't really know where else to take that, in terms of him knowing stuff or having abilities and whatnot. Obviously we know Sarah knows her stuff in that realm as well. I mean, I would really actually, I wouldn't like it if Morgan got Chuck Fu. You know what I mean? I think he has to stake Morgan. So I love the fact that I can't think of what this will be. I don't think it'll be Sarah's going to have a baby. I mean, I think that's too obvious, don't you think?
Yeah. I think it would be just awful.
I don't think it would be a good move at all. Yeah.
It wouldn't work.
No. I'm with you.
And what about Ellie? Could there be something there? She is a Bartowski.
She is. I don't know, but she's also a mama now, and she's got a whole lot of stuff on her plate right now. So I don't think.
What if it turns out that Clara somehow has been intersected?
Oh, I don't know. But what can she really do as a character? You know what I mean? Like, how does that just raise the stakes for everyone else?
Yeah,
things scary.
She could become. I could see that being the lead out to. I don't know how much they would actually want to do this on an 8 p.m. show, but with season 5 being all about protecting the secret of Clara and the baby in danger from whoever.
I don't know. I just watched a whole season of Sons of Anarchy, which was about protecting a baby, and boy, that was not awesome. I mean, I'm a fan of the show, and some aspects of that season worked, but building a whole season around a person that can't talk just seemed like maybe not a great idea. But I don't know. I mean, it could be something like that. I think that, it's definitely a show that builds a lot of its structure on family, as, we saw with Mom this year. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with Sarah's family. Maybe that's what they're kind of keeping that in reserve for. I don't know.
So season 5 is the search for Sarah's mom.
Exactly.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
I think they could do worse.
What if now this because they've tried to push away anytime anybody asks about Sarah's mom, but if there were ever a time that Sarah's mom were to show up, it would be at their wedding.
Absolutely.
And what if she shows up, but she's some kind of super spy or something like that, and that's a part of what leads us towards season 5.
Well, is it as fun if she's a super villain and she's totally evil? I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of. I wouldn't want them to repeat themselves in terms of where they've gone in the past. So, because they have had such great parental role models, I mean, Scott Bakula was amazing. Linda Hamilton was really great. Even as we were talking about, Volkoff has been like this good, dark side daddy. They really have to step up and do something fresh with Sarah's mom. I think, and hopefully they can. That would be, people have already been throwing out casting ideas for who that could be. Who would you guys want to see for that?
Well, we actually did a Friday 5 with ideas for her. Yeah. A lot of people are saying Cheryl Ladd.
Yeah, that was one I kept hearing too. Yeah. I don't know. I have no real preference on that. That's always the kind of thing that other people have better ideas than I do. So I just sort of draft off what other people think.
Yeah. Well, and the title of the last one is Chuck versus the Cliffhanger.
Yes, indeed. Do they know something we don't? Because if they end on a cliffhanger, boy, I'm just saying, what if they end on a cliffhanger and then we don't get any more?
Oh, that is the worst.
Don't say that.
That's why I'm thinking, Chris Spiedek is someone who's racked by anxiety on his best day. So why would he do that to himself? Why would he create that angst for himself? You would think he would. Maybe he knows that there's definitely going to be a season 5. Although, I'd like to know that too at this point.
Mm-hmm. We'll have finale and a Valium.
Yes, thank you very much. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we're at an hour.
Already?
Yeah, we should probably start to wrap things up. But any last things we want to talk about before?
Any last words, Mo?
I just don't want this show to go away. I really hope that it comes back, and I hope that NBC sees the value in having something in that spot that is reliable in terms of quality and reliable in terms of the audience that wants to turn up for it. So just have my fingers crossed, because I think, like you said, I think they really had overall a strong, enjoyable season, and there are just definitely more chapters that I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I think that's a good note to end on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely is. Well, Mo, we thank you so much for taking this time. It's always such an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
Oh, this is my pleasure. I love talking to you all, and I'm so glad we got to do this.
Yeah.
So maybe after season 4 and thinking about season 5, because by that point we'll have heard the announcement and we will have seen the game-changing finale.
Oh, yes. That sounds fun. Let's do that again.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, thanks so much, Mo. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we're back. Boy, it's always awesome to talk to Mo.
I always feel like I learned something from her every time I listen to her.
Yeah.
I just like to sit back and listen to her talk.
Yeah. And it's so cool that she's a Chuck fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice to be able to talk to her as both a critic and a fan.
Yeah. So it's been a long podcast already. We will go into spoilers in a little bit, but first we have some sponsor messages, including our new sponsor we told you about, Elgato. So here we go, thanking our sponsors. Turn your Mac into the coolest television and DVR in the house with award-winning iTV from Elgato. Whether you get your TV signal from an antenna or from a digital box, there's an iTV tuner to suit your needs. Watch live TV on your Mac, record a TV show or series, and enjoy the episodes you've recorded later on your Mac, iPad, or iPhone. You can even stream live TV straight to your iPad with the optional iTV app. You can find all this at www.elgato.com. And we want to thank the rest of our sponsors, IELabs.com, makers of the award-winning Action Blue AVCHD conversion software, which authors full HD videos on regular DVD discs. It even works with HD clips from the iPhone and the new iPad too. You can get your free trial of the software at IELabs.com. We also want to thank the Movie Morons podcast at moviemorons.com. They are actually highly intelligent and talk about new movies, classic movies, and movies that you may not have even heard of but are worth a trip to the video store to find, and even interview filmmakers and authors. moviemorons.com. And last but not least, SerienJunkies.de.
Hello, this is Christina Caramel from Serienjunkies TV. Are you addicted to TV shows? Be our guests and learn the latest news and reflections on what's going on in the world of TV series. Well, our show is in German, but maybe you want to drop in anyway? Then visit www.serienjunkies.de and watch out for our video podcast. See you.
Spoiler warning. And we're back with spoilers. Mel, what have you got for us?
Well, first we have the official synopsis for episode 421, Chuck versus the Wedding Planner, airing April 18th.
Mm-hmm.
In order to catch a thief, Chuck and Sarah must enlist Sarah's father and con the CIA. Gary Cole and McKenna Melvin guest star. When Chuck and Sarah get conned out of their wedding money, there is only one man they can turn to for help. Sarah's con man father, Jack Burton. Meanwhile, Morgan pressures Casey to face Alex's mother. Ryan McPartland, Scott Krinsky, Vic Sahai, and Benita Friederici also star. And we've got
cool.
the video preview for this up at chucktv.net. It looks like it's going to be just fantastic. I cannot wait.
Hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty excited. Well, during the hiatus, Ozziello posted some Chuck scoop that got fans buzzing. The question was posted, please give us some Chuck scoop. Man, I hate this hiatus. That's from Cece. Ozziello says, yeah, well, you may hate this next scoop more. In this season's penultimatum episode on May 9th, something terrible happens to someone we love, reveals EP Chris Fedak. In potentially related news, the show is casting the role of Clyde Decker, a determined and remorseless CIA agent who will go to any lengths and spare no expense or life in order to keep the CIA secrets buried. His nickname, the Eraser. Wasn't that a movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. So, something terrible and someone we love. This is going to be intense.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty vague, by the way, Chris. Thanks very much for that. As for this Decker guy, sounds like season 1 Walker, Sarah Walker, maybe?
Or Casey.
Yeah.
Or Casey.
Or Casey, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
in the beginning when he's like talking about going to California, I'm starting to look pasty. I really love that beginning Casey. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah, before he had all those pesky lady feelings.
Well, I honestly, as much as I love Gary Cole, I can't wait to see how that plays out with his ex-fiancée.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's going to be really something for Adam to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're giving him some good stuff, finally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much so. So, don't forget, Reward TV, and if you're a Nielsen viewer, watch 10 times in a row.
Yeah. Do it!
Yeah. And we'll see you next week.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Checksters.
Bye-bye.